Ah, good morning. It's Friday, March 18th. I've been trying to plan some of these little talks of ours. Uh, First thing I want to tell you that is I mentioned that I've got a News Bose headset. I'm unable to recommend it. It's not hooking up the way it should. It's a real pain in the derriere. I've been on the phone with them so many hours. I'm getting very frustrated. I'm also got a new cell phone. I can't recommend it either, even though it's supposed to be the top of the line S22 Ultra. I'm sorry, but they have really been kind of disappointing in what they've done. No headphone jack, so I can't plug in my wired headphones, which means that the sound quality is probably never going to be that good. I think that was a big mistake on their part. The camera looks like it's all over the place as far as focusing right now. It's moving in and out. Well, let's start for this day. As far as what's going on over in the Ukraine, folks, it's a big shit show. That's all there is to it. They're putting on a show for you because they want to sell you on the war. Why do they want to sell you on the war? Because you discovered them pretty much as far as this bio stuff has been going on. And I don't want to get into that very far either because there's some hot words I just can't mention. It'll get this video flagged in a heartbeat for sure. The thing is, they've done a typical Hegelian dialectic on us. They gave us a problem, which was also one of those bio things, and they gave us a solution, which is also another one of those bio things. So either way, it's been fabricated. It's man-made. It's a weapon. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And so they have to take our minds off that. And at this point, they want to sell us on a war. There's no war really going on over there, folks. It's an incursion. Vladimir Putin called it an incursion, and I'm going to take the man at his word. How many cell phones are in the Ukraine? I'm not seeing any live videos. I mean, today, in this day and age, you don't have live videos of something that's going on or claim to be going on. So, folks, it's not very factual. I've also been listening to a new channel recently called The Duran. There's Alex and Alexander, and they're both very brainy men, very smart. Their analyses are spot on. They're worth watching if you want to know what's going on over there. If you want an analysis as far as as far as our international policy with this administration in D.C. that's even more illegal than any other administration we've had in D.C. Listen to them, folks. They seem to have their finger on the pulse. They're putting together the pieces, and they're giving you excellent analyses, and they're also telling you what's coming. They're very good at predicting what's going to come out of this. Pretty much anything that this so-called administration in Washington, D.C. does, whatever they decide is the opposite of what we want to do. I'm convinced that the purpose of that man being in there is to destroy us. He's making the wrong decisions every which way. We don't have a shortage of gas in the world or oil in the world. Global warming. Oh boy, I'm sorry I mentioned it. I guess we're there. I guess today it's called climate change. Some of what they're talking about is factual, but it's being used in a underhanded way. So what we are headed into is an ice age. The Earth has its own cycles. Man doesn't have much to do with it. We suffer at those cycles. So there is an increase in carbon dioxide. That's quite true. But the increase in carbon dioxide does not cause the temperature to rise. Rather, it's an after effect. It's the results of the temperature rising. So, what's the temperature rising from? Well, it's certainly not from cow flatulence. It's not from the exhaust pipes as highly as we want to think of ourselves, as much as we want to think that we're that important and that we can have that much of an effect. Folks, we don't have that much of an effect. Yeah, there's a little bit of an effect. Being an Alaskan, I've seen the exhaust in the wintertime off tailpipes of cars, especially in the old days when it was colder. It's kind of beautiful and kind of ugly at the same time because the entire roadway is filled with the expanding exhaust gases, and stuff tends to hang in the air and gets crystallized. It adds to the ice crystals. Ice fog is rather beautiful. We don't get much of it like we used to in the older days. For me, the older days would be like 1969, 1970. I'm broadcasting from just outside of Phoenix. In case you're wondering, this will be the future capital of the United States of America. According to Edgar Cayce, J. Edgar Cayce was regarded as a psychic and a medium. Sounds like he's not a very good Christian because of that. If you read the Bible where it tells you not to consult spiritists, mediums, occultists, and all of that stuff, well, like Saul did when he went to the medium and he conjured up the prophet. And that's in the Bible. Anyway, what's happening is this is all the result of our sun's activity. Our sun's activity changes as we go around the Milky Way. I'm not liking the way the camera is working this morning very well. This framing is all over the place, but I'm going to go with this. I'm not editing these videos. Yes, I listen to them and I hear my stupid mistakes. I said Charlemagne the Great the other day when I actually was talking about the Emperor Constantine. I was thinking of him, referring to him. So I'd like to be able to correct my videos, hoping I get a little bit of help someday. But until that time, I want to leave these videos raw, unedited. I think you're going to need to hear this stuff, and I want you to actually see my mistakes. I want to be real raw and real honest with you. So there's a global cooling that's going on right now. It hasn't cooled very much, but when this next ice age starts, it's going to start probably with a bang, quite literally, and it's going to be very rapid when it occurs. How long it will last, I don't know. The Earth's been through many of these ice ages, many cataclysms. The Earth's been around quite a while, 4 or 5 billion years most likely. The fact is that what's going on in the Ukraine is an act. It's an ugly act. This performance of this president speaking before the Congress with a very contrived, obvious speech, which he delivers as an actor. That's what he is, folks. He's an actor. He's in this idea that we're going to pour weapons, we're going to put gasoline on a fire. Is that a good idea? So we're going to ship all of these weapons into this region? That's a mistake, folks. Doesn't matter how much you ship into there. Maybe 10% gets there. The rest of the bulk of it goes on the black market. You're going to ship surface to air missiles? Gee, hasn't that happened before? Haven't they been used to take down, well, commercial airliners? Folks, what's going to happen with everything we ship in there? Those people can't use it. They're not prepared to fight the Russians. There's no way they're going to win. All that's going to result from our sticking our noses where it doesn't belong again is more death. We certainly aren't acting on behalf of the Ukraine or the Ukrainian people. The decisions aren't in the best interest of that country or that population at all. It's not in our best interest. As a matter of fact, it looks as though this actually is a war to destroy our own country. I mean, look at who's at risk here. We've kicked Russia out of the SWIFT system. What does that do? It destroys the power of the United States, the dollar, what we call the United States dollar today, the Federal Reserve note. It makes it less likely to keep the position it's had and that we've enjoyed for years. It's likely to lessen our ability to be the world's reserve currency. It's an asinine move. You need to take this guy out of office, folks. You need to get rid of him as fast as you can. He's going to destroy us. And you think, well, we'll just tolerate it for a while. We'll wait till the next election. Things aren't going to be much different this election. Nothing's changed, especially not from what I see in the state of Arizona. They're going to still be doing the old practices. Same with the other states. They haven't changed much either. So you're going to have more election fraud. I don't know what else to call it. I mean, you're going to have more problems with the elections. I don't have any confidence in these elections. I look back at 2016. I don't have confidence in that election either. We don't have good elections. I can't trust them. Do you trust them? So if you people think that you're going to be able to just have a normal, honest election, it's not going to happen again. There's no way. This guy, Bill Barr, came out public and said there was some fraud, but it wasn't enough to affect the outcome of the election. Bovine excrement. Where does this guy crawl out of a rock from? He's been the attorney general twice. I mean, look who put him in the first time. The Bushes. He helped cover up all the crimes that occurred during the Bush administration. He's helped cover up the crimes that occurred during the Trump administration. Folks, there's nothing but crime in this country. We are not a free and honest people. We can't even enforce honest laws. We can't even enforce the laws in our nation. There's no justice. You know, if you're rich and powerful, well, they just roll over the other people. And of course, then the FBI will step in and protect a congressman or protect a senator. I think that's what they're there for, is to babysit these politicians. They certainly aren't there to help us little folks. They oppress us. I don't see them doing us any good. Folks, the time the FBI let us down the biggest was the Oklahoma City bombing. In OKC, or whatever you want to call it, we had the Murrah building was blasted to pieces. And in case you want to blame the Russians for killing children over there, which I don't think they're doing, I don't think that's happened. We killed 19 children in the Oklahoma City bombing. Yes, we did. The ATF, I don't like the ATF very much, folks. They need to go by the wayside, but they're far more honorable and noble than the FBI ever hoped to be. The ATF agent discovered the Oklahoma City bombings at least 6 weeks. 6 weeks before it occurred. As I remember, this was a black woman, an African-American woman, an ATF agent, and she discovered it, and she reported it to her superiors, and the FBI told the ATF to stand down because they were in charge of this. And the building blew 6 weeks later. Folks, that was an inside job. Actually, it might have been part outside as well. It looks like a fellow named Andy Strasberg was involved in that, and the FBI made sure to escort him safely out of the country through Nova Scotia 9 months after it occurred. So I regard the ATF much higher than the FBI. That's not to say the FBI can't stumble and do something right occasionally. The FBI, as far as I can tell, they just don't even have a proper charter. This is another one of those institutions that we have that's not constitutional. I'm sure that'll come as a shock to you that they're not a constitutional organization. It's not in the Constitution. All policies were reserved to the states by our Constitution. And I think we need to go back to the sheriffs and to our militias. I really think that we need to expand the authority of sheriffs and the militias in particular. I think if we have the militias, everything gets solved. With the militias, if they knew somebody was committing a crime, they could go and arrest them. They didn't have a limited authority. The militias acted as a body, a very large body of well-armed men, and if the sheriff was committing a crime, they would go and grab the sheriff up, and they would put him in jail or take him before the judge. We need to go back to those times and those days. Our founders gave us a really good form of government. Folks, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. All we have to do is roll this thing back. In case you're wondering, the amendments, almost all of them are illegal, unconstitutional. There's one amendment that's missing today that actually is the law of the land. That is the original 13th Amendment. We need to embrace the original 13th Amendment because it gave us the separation of powers. It also it put these attorneys in their place. We need to, and it is the law of the land properly. People didn't realize that the state of New Hampshire was the 10th state out of the 13 to adopt, to vote for it. We didn't realize that until sometime in the last decade. While I've been traveling the country, there was a report, and the news report was while they were cleaning out the capital of New Hampshire, in Concord, New Hampshire, they actually discovered an old copy of the New Hampshire Constitution with the original 13th Amendment in it. Folks, nobody thought that New Hampshire, at this late date, nobody realized that New Hampshire had passed it. Everybody thought it hinged upon, the ninth state passing it, which in that case would have been Virginia. And the argument over Virginia is that we don't have the handwritten notes from the Virginia legislative session in which it was passed. Guess where the handwritten notes for the Virginia state legislative session are? That's relevant. They're under lock and key in England, in Great Britain. Folks, what are our documents doing under lock and key in England? I think we need to demand that be returned. I think that's an act of war, sabotage. The original 13th Amendment was passed in 1812 as a result of the War of 1812, a direct result of the War of 1812, in which the attorneys got us into that war. And so they actually drafted up the 13th Amendment to maintain the separation of powers. As the 13th Amendment, it said that any member of the Bar Association was stripped of any and all citizenship in these United States. Any Bar Association member. If you look at any Bar Association member, that means all the attorneys today, all of the practicing attorneys, because they're all members of the Bar Association. What's wrong with the Bar Association? It's not American. It's the British Accreditation Registry. And another thing it did is it provided that no officer of the court, because they were a member of the judiciary branch of the government, could not cross over and become members of the other branches of the government. In other words, no officer of the court, no attorney could be elected to the executive branch of this nation. They could not hold the office of president or vice president. They also could not cross over into the legislative branch. They could not hold an elected office as a legislator, neither as a senator nor as a congressman. Folks, when the attorneys cry, and they will cry, something that we've been told about for a couple hundred years. If you or I violate the law and we don't know about that law, what do they tell us? The same thing that these attorneys are going to be screaming, folks. They're going to be screaming that we didn't know. And what did we say about that? What do the attorneys always chide us about when we violate a law we didn't know about? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Now, when you have a bunch of bar association members who are stripped of their citizenship rights, what are you going to do about it? Well, I tell you what, I'm going to sit back and do nothing. And I'm going to tell the attorneys, look, you got us into this problem. You guys have been lying to us for years about the laws, and you didn't know the law. So you're in violation of the law. And I think that we need to sit back and see what the attorneys come up with for a solution. However, we need to hold their feet to the fire. And the one stipulation is any discussions, any negotiations, any proposals must be done publicly. And if these bar association members do it in secret, they should be sentenced to death. They should forfeit their very lives. We can't have things done in secret anymore. We can't have backroom deals anymore. We can't have secret societies pulling stuff off that we don't know about. Everything has to be done in the light of day, subject to public scrutiny, full disclosure. That's what we have to do. I call my strategic intervention the original 13th Amendment. And it disappeared because Abraham Lincoln overrode it with the Anti-Slavery Amendment. Now, why would Honest Abe do such a thing? Why would he do that to us? Could it be that it was because he was an attorney, a bar association member, and that the original 13th Amendment made it illegal for him to hold the office of the presidency? Could it be that he wasn't even a proper president? A lot of things happened during the Civil War and as a result of the Civil War. One of the things is that we actually created a corporation. And that purpose of that corporation was to rule over the 10 square miles of Washington, D.C. So we're going to get into that because I've got to do a little bit more refreshing and some research on that. There were no corporate governments, but there were no corporations before the Civil War in our country. Since then, we have probably 4 different corporations called the United States of America in a giant shell game. Every state no longer has an organic government. It has a corporate government now. As far as the Washington, D.C. government, we're going to have to ignore that. It's not going to go away, but we're going to have to create our own government. We're going to have to sit our own people. The people that are in those seats, they're not in the same seats that we started with when we started our nation. The real change has to happen at the state level, folks. You've got to unseat, get rid of these corporate governments, and put in real governments, real men. Our founders would never have allowed corporations because they knew what corporations could do. They knew about the East India Trading Company. They knew how wicked that was. That was a predecessor of the Khazarian Mafia. So our founders would be rolling over in their graves. They wouldn't allow a corporation to exist within the United States. They certainly wouldn't authorize any corporations, and moreover, they wouldn't allow corporations to do business inside the United States of America. They would not be allowed to do business with any citizen of the United States of America. That's one more thing, folks. Before the Civil War, we were citizens of our individual states. In other words, I'm a citizen of Alaska. We weren't regarded as citizens of these United States of America. There was no such thing as a citizen of the United States until the 13th and 14th Amendments. They created a citizen because the blacks were not regarded as citizens of their states. And they also were worried that the number of slaves was so high, the number of blacks was so high, that they didn't want the states to have greater representation than the North. So our Congress, in all of its wisdom, decided to count these as 3/10 of a man. That's right. You know, the North, while it was occupying the South, was so magnanimous and so non-racist that they decided they were going to make a black man only 3/10 of a human for the purposes of congressional representation, because, as you know or should know, the members of Congress are based or were based upon population. They're still based on population. The folks, the South had a lot of things right. The South produced most of our presidents. There was not a single two-term president from the northern states before the Civil War. All of our two-term presidents were from the South. Most of our judges were from the South. The South was better educated. The South was richer. It was a war about money. From what I can tell, it was a war about money. In case you're wondering, the richest state in the whole Union was in the South, and that was the state of Mississippi. I don't remember these figures very well, but I believe that the average per capita income at the time was like over $2,100. And in the northern states, the highest, the wealthiest state was Connecticut, and I believe their average per capita income was just over $700. So people in Mississippi had 3 times the wealth, 3 times the income that people in the North had. Also, the South was taxed in a wrongful proportion. The South paid 80% of the taxes to fund the federal government. And so when the South seceded from the Union, they weren't getting, $8 million of the $10 million annual budget? Yeah. Can you imagine having a little federal government that ran on $10 million a year? That's what we had back then, and $8 million of it came from the southern states now, folks. How fair is that? Is that not a disproportionate tax? $2 million comes from the North, $8 million comes from the South. It was about taxes, folks. And it was also about the Khazarian mafia trying to break our country up. And in case you're wondering, we would not be here today if it wasn't for the Tsar of Russia. The Russians are our brothers. They're our best friends. The Russians actually helped us during our Revolutionary War as well. How did they help us? Well, the Tsars were very magnanimous men. They had a navy. We didn't have a navy. The Tsar stationed his navy in 2 of our harbors, in the harbor at San Francisco and the harbor at New York, and thereby keeping out the fleets of the ones working for the Khazarians, the British, the Spanish, and the French. They kept them out of here, folks, and we were safe because of that. The reason that we went after the Tsar, and I'm going to say we, that's not a slip-up, folks. The reason we went after the Tsar was because he defended us. You say, boy, that's kind of a schizophrenic thinking, don't you think, Dr. Kent? No. It's accurate. The Russian Revolution, and particularly the Bolshevik Revolution, was planned, financed, and launched from our own shores, from New York, from Manhattan. And they went after the Tsar to pay him back because he had interfered with their plans so much. Not only that, but the White Russians actually destroyed their nation. In Cliff Eye has this wrong. A lot of people have this wrong. They think it was 1200 AD. It was actually 1100 AD when the Khazarians were run off from their nation and they went west and they settled in Poland and Lithuania and throughout the world. That's what's going on in Khazaria right now. You call it the Ukraine. Go to my blog, watch the first video of Putin on a pox upon your house. Go to that blog. There's 4 videos in which I linked. Putin is explaining why he's made this incursion into the Ukraine, into Khazaria. He says he wants to get rid of the Nazis there. That's his word, not mine. He gives us video of the 3 regiments. I believe that's what we want to call them. And all 3 of these regiments, young, buff men, very disciplined. All of their uniforms incorporate the symbol of ancient Khazaria. There's 3 different units that I saw, 3 different groups, three different patches, and they varied. All of them had an end with a vertical bar through it. I believe that stands for nationalism, but it's in support of nationalism. And of course, it's all a bunch of young white guys. The original Khazarians were Turkish Mongolian, and it's kind of wild. And you have Jewish leadership in the country, and I have written it down as they're playing Jews and Nazis in the Ukraine. Gee, boys and girls, where have we heard of that before? Yeah, it's not looking good. Don't let them manipulate us into this war. They manipulated us into World War I and World War II, and we had no business being involved in those wars. Those were bad wars. They didn't end any wars. They're trying to enlarge this war. Why are they trying to enlarge this war? They want you to forget about this little stint with the biological crap they pulled on us and the destruction of our economy. They're making major moves to destroy our economy. Folks, the sooner we start ignoring this central government, this illegal, unconstitutional government in D.C., the better. In case you're wondering where the bad guys come from, there was a group called the Phoenicians. Here I am outside of Phoenix for the winter time here, and I tell you, Phoenix will be the capital of the United States of America, according to Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce did go into trances. He did give people readings. He told us about health stuff way back when he was alive. Edgar Cayce read the Bible, folks. Every year he read the Bible through. So as much as you might want to criticize him because he was a medium, a spiritualist, and he was dabbling in things that most of us, well, at the time he was alive, people turned their noses up on. You have to understand that the man read the Bible every year of his life. That's what it took for him to read it through. Now, folks, it takes me 1.5 years to read the Bible. So I don't read it through in a full year. When you get older, you have a lot of knowledge. You have more to think through. You have much more to integrate. So, your knowledge is fluid when you're younger because you're like a sponge. You can remember things. When you get older, you have a knowledge base built upon all kinds of assumptions. A lot of it's not true. And when you get new knowledge that challenges your crystallized knowledge, it takes time to work through it and think through it. So that's where I'm at this point in my life. I'm still learning. A sign of being old is that you're inflexible. You will not learn. I get a little bit cogity once in a while. Yeah. I was actually probably an irritant to other people before I got my hearing aids. I didn't realize how much I couldn't hear. I didn't realize how irritating my voice was. Really like the hearing aids because at least then I can hear my own voice and modulate myself better, and I can be more pleasant around other people instead of being a codgety old man that, an old fart that doesn't get along with people. Folks, you've got to be flexible. You got to keep flexibility in your body, in your spine. You've got to keep flexibility in your mind. Stay in shape as best you can. I'm going to go back to running. Yeah, I know. What's this old guy doing? Running? Well, I've got some people that tell me not to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it every day. I'm not going to push myself. I'm not doing 5 miles again. 1.5 miles, that's my goal. Maybe 2 miles would be nice. And maybe twice a week would be about ideal, I think. What I want you to do today is I want you to order the best Bible in the world. Talked with the publisher last night. He sent me some links in email, which I can't find. You have to forgive me because you have to go through the extra steps, but it's well worth it. The publisher has been dropping prices, slashing them. Folks, the prices are not going to stay this low for long. We want to get those Bibles out there. We want to get you reading Bibles because we know that's what's going to shore this nation up. When we turn back to our Creator Father, Yahweh, when we turn back to Yahweh, He will turn to us again and bless us. Unfortunately, we're not going to turn back to Him as a nation. The principle is the nation as a whole has to turn back in order for Him to really step in and intervene. I believe that we have to turn back to Him as best we can. I'm not asking you to convert or have a particular belief or go to a church. Stay out of their damn churches. They all lie. The pastors do lie. Oh, yeah, some of them say some great things. Some of them have some wonderful stories to tell. I love some of those things. But you need to understand, folks, that your obligation is to read the Bible for yourself. I can't even read it for you, but I'm going to read it, and we're going to be getting into things. And we're going to be dwelling on what they call the original sin. We're going to be dwelling on that because you don't know it, and they haven't preached the truth in a long time, folks. Back when our nation was founded, we were Bible readers, and they couldn't subvert us, and they knew they couldn't overtake us unless they subverted our Bible. And that's exactly what they did. They actually gave us a new Bible in about 1907, 1917. Gee, what else was going on there? Well, that's when they gave us the FBI, the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, which the sole purpose of that body is to defame other people. From what I can see, that's what its behavior is. And the FBI was designed to babysit congressmen and senators. They gave us also the Federal Reserve, which isn't even a federal institution. By the way, the CDC isn't a federal institution either. They've given us all of these institutions which are systemically unconstitutional, and they're ruling over us. This is what happens when you turn your back on God. Read those 10 commandments. Read the blessings for obedience. Read the curses for disobedience, folks, because that's what we're suffering through. We are actually, the United States of America is in the Bible. And it was mentioned when Israel was giving his blessings to his sons. And he told the boys that Manasseh was going to become a great nation, or the great nation, which is the United States of America today. So the United States of America, we are descendants of Manasseh. We have all of the tribes here. There were 13 of them, folks. The 13th was not the Khazarians, as Kushler, I think was his name, wrote. It actually... And the reason we got 13 tribes is because Joseph had 2 boys, Ephraim and Manasseh, whom Israel adopted as his own sons. So we don't have a tribe of Joseph running around, in case you're wondering. We've got the tribe of Ephraim and the tribe of Manasseh. Ephraim became Great Britain. Some of my Bible reading brothers disagree with me on that, and this is one thing upon which I don't mind if we disagree. Things got a bit crossed up in the Bible, and if you've read the Bible, you know I mean that quite literally, not just figuratively. You know, when Israel blessed Ephraim and Manasseh, he crossed his arms. And Joseph said, no, 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 Father, the other way around. Bless the oldest one. And Israel said, I know it, my son, I know it. But this is what the Spirit told him to do. That crossing of the arms was also a preceding action for the cross of St. Andrews. The cross of St. Andrews is what most of you call the rebel flag, the stars and bars. The cross of St. Andrew is actually a good thing. You've put bad intentions and bad meanings, and you've attributed evil on good things. And today we call evil things good and good things evil. Things are truly inverted. As you go about your day, try to get a hold of one of these Bibles. The prices are like half. We've got quite a few of them, but they're not going to last very long. These were printed up in the Baltic states. Oh man, I can't even think about these names very well. I just don't talk enough. Anyway, they came from the Baltic, and they is that the right? They come from a really good Christian printing organization. As we talk, you're going to find out there are problems with the term Christian. We're going to get into that in the Bible. You're going to be free to call yourself a Christian. I'm not going to tell you not to do that. We're all used to that so much by now, but we're used to a lot of things that aren't really accurate, precise, or factual. The Christians did not call themselves Christians. They were called Christians as a derogatory term by the Roman pagans around them. They derided the Christians. They called them Christians. The followers of the way, the apostles, never called themselves Christians. This camera keeps going in and out, and I don't like that much. I'm going to have to watch this video to see what's going on. I want to get some short videos out there, short topics. I'm actually going to introduce a topic which a lot of you are probably going to, you're going to really wonder about Dr. Kent, or wonder if Doc Kent's losing his mind, but I'm going to cover what a prospective sugar baby needs to know. Yes, folks, it's clickbait. I want to get viewership. I'm going to tell people the truth about the deterioration of our culture, and that includes in the sugar dating world. I'm going to cover the roles of women, positions, if you will, in the Bible. I'm going to cover some of the advantages and disadvantages of those. I'm also going to cover the options that a woman has. I want you girls to understand you have greater value than what you think, but your thinking is off and your thinking is wrong, and you don't understand yourselves very well. You certainly don't understand men. We men are very easy to understand. We can fall in love at first sight. You women don't believe that at all. You don't trust it. Your nature and our nature is not quite the same. You were given a very heavy crown. It requires a balancing act to wear that. Your body chemistry is actually a little bit it's a little bit more difficult to manage, so you do require more shelter and you require protection. You were given extra capacities that we've measured and that we know about, and those were given to you by Creator Father for the purposes of being mothers. Unfortunately, when you use this extra capacity given to you so you could be a good mother, and you use it to seduce and to manipulate, you drive yourselves crazy. Sorry, babes, but that's actually pretty factual. So that's what's going on today, is this extra capacity. In case you're wondering, according to Sikh Dharma, according to Yogi Bhajan, Siri Singh Sahib, I participated in that religion for a few years. Lived in an ashram a couple of times. What you're going to find is that we could measure brain waves during meditation, and we found that a man was unable to control, he could control all brain waves except for gamma while he was meditating, but women could control gamma. Men couldn't do it. So we know that there's extra to the electromagnetic field of a woman. There's extra to the soul of a woman. Uh, Unfortunately, you don't understand this nature of yourselves, and you don't understand what you're doing to yourselves. You are harming yourselves. Um, do not take a life of promiscuity, because the nature of the aura is such that men carry around the impression from their female partners for 1 year before it wears off. But when it comes to a woman, she carries the impression of her sex partners forever. In other words, for eternity. So this impression does not go away. So be careful, ladies. You do not want to wear a whole bunch of different dicks in your aura. You don't want a whole bunch of different men on you. It's not healthy for you. It's not good for you. And it's basically a life sentence that you're taking on yourself. We're going to get into this stuff in detail, folks. You ladies need this extra knowledge so that you can take better care of yourselves. There's I really should only say this word one time, but there is a movement, if you will. That's what they want to call it. It's called MGTOW, which means men going their own way. They are very critical of women, and somewhat rightfully so. However, there's no male champion for you ladies out there. There's no man who's telling you what's in your own best interest. I'm hoping to be a champion for you ladies. I'm an older man. I mean, I think I'm pretty safe at this point in my life. I've lived most of my life. I think my character, it's a bit flawed. I'm a man. I'm a human being. But I think I'm pretty much proven at this point, and I don't think I'm going to be doing too much more mischief in my life. You really do need to know this stuff. You need to know about the chemical bonds, the bonding that a lot of you are overriding and destroying by too many partners. You need to understand that God had a family on the planet, and some of you are actually Yahweh's daughters, and you don't even know it. You actually should be getting more value from your life. We're going to have to ask ourselves, what's the true value? I'm going to arm you up with all of this knowledge and information so that you can make better decisions, so that you will enjoy your lives better. Women today are not very happy, especially women that are, my age, approaching my age. Women who are in their 40s aren't very happy. Women in their 30s aren't very happy either. Ladies, you were given everything right out of the chute. Now, these men on these channels, these younger guys, they really do seem to have a handle on human nature. They really do have a lot to contribute. But I still don't hear anybody giving enough advice. Parents out there with daughters, I want to speak with you in particular, fathers in particular. Ladies, mothers, I got to have you on board. I'm going to be doing the best I can to help build the American family, to restore the team, to get the teamwork going, because, ladies, you are the backbone of our morality. My grandmother was college educated. My grandmother graduated from Mount Holyoke in 1917. She was one of 3 daughters. And their father believed in an education. He sent his daughters off to college. They had to go to college. Women were not college educated back in those days, folks. My grandmother also marched for women's rights to vote. She was a suffragette. I'm going to tell you quite a bit about my grandmother. She had a tremendous influence on me. I don't agree with with marching for women's right to vote, because what they did is they created a right to vote for women, and there's no right to vote for men. You read the Constitution, you read the amendments, and you tell me if you can find a right for men to vote. Folks, men didn't have a right to vote. Voting was done at the state level. The states managed the voting, and we have to go back to that. I mean, if you want true diversity, that's how you get it. It occurs at the state level. You have different social experiments doing different laws, running things differently according to the way the locals want it. And then we can sit back and study the effects of those laws on society, and we can change our laws and make adjustments and make it better for everyone. That's what we should have, folks. We should have the freedom of self-rule. We don't have that today. Today we're being ruled by corporations, international corporations, government corporations. And in case you're wondering, there's only one corporation in the world, folks, and that is the corporation in Rome. All of the corporations are underneath the Pope. Roman law, canon law. Folks, they've been depriving us of the knowledge of this for a long time. They've been running roughshod on us. It's going to get worse. The only way it's going to change is if you take control locally. So you've got to take control of your school boards. That's probably the first place. The second thing is you've got to take control of your counties. That's the second place. That's where most of the battle will be fought. You probably haven't heard of the Battle of Jones County, but Jones County was in Mississippi. There's 83 counties in Mississippi. Jones County was able to escape the scourge of the carpetbaggers and the destruction that the rest of the South suffered. How did they do that? The men banded together, and they wouldn't allow outsiders in. They'd bushwhack them, they would attack them, and they put them all on notice. They didn't want anything to do with outsiders. So they would not allow the carpetbaggers in. They wouldn't allow the North in. They wouldn't, I don't even think they allowed the Southern troops in. They kept everybody out. And by doing that, they actually escaped relatively unscathed. Their houses weren't burned down. They weren't taxed by the carpetbaggers. They weren't oppressed like the rest of the South was. So there's a lesson to be learned from Jones County. However, folks, there's a couple of bad habits that they had down there that we don't want to repeat. But you have to study that to understand it. I haven't read that much about it. If you read about it and you want to have a discussion with me and educate me about it, you can be a guest right here. I'm not having guests. I'd love to have a guest with people who are like-minded, who have researched things and understand things that I don't know, because I want to learn, folks. I want to know more about these things. What I want you to do is I want you to buy this Bible, get it ordered while the prices are so cheap. It's like half the price it's going to be. Belarus is where they were printed, and just the other day, our legislature decided to stop all trade with Russia and Belarus. So that's where these Bibles come from. We're lucky. We got the shipment in last year. We've got quite a few, but they're not going to last long, and the prices are going to be changing. I mean, I saw one price of $36, which is excellent. I think that was for a black leather copy as well, the standard one. I highly recommend you get one of these Bibles and start reading it. And the way to read the Bible is you read it for its history. Learn the names of the characters. You also can read it like a play. Learn the names of the characters and learn the plot. And also, read it for the lessons. Read it for the laws. There's a lot of laws in there. There's like more than 600 laws, I believe. But in case you're wondering, there's a lot of laws and principles in the Bible that people haven't pulled for. They don't understand. One of the laws and orders in the Bible is love, truth, and justice. Love, truth, and justice in that order. You have to love truth. You have to have truth before you can have justice. Without knowing the truth, there can be no justice. Read the Bible so that you understand the truth. read the Bible so you understand the underpinnings of Western civilization, which is under attack. And the only way we're going to restore Western civilization is to embrace Yahweh, embrace our foundations. That means reading the Bible. It also means reading the Shakespearean plays and becoming familiar with those archetypes. Those are great plays, folks. By the way, the same man gave you the King James Bible, gave you the Shakespearean plays. His name should have been Kent. Should have been Francis Kent. But they couldn't call him Kent because his lineage would have been discovered. And his mother was the Queen of England. Queen Elizabeth was his mother. I'm still looking for somebody up there to take me up on my challenge. I want to know the first name of the Kent who sired two boys with the Queen. I really do want to know his name. The Kents are what I call, well, we haven't been featured in history very much yet. We were major players in it. We got our land patents from the county of Kent. Only the county of Kent was given what was called a allodial title. A allodial title meant that you had all rights above and all rights below, and you had the rights in perpetuity, very much like in the old Israelite days. It couldn't be taken from you. It could not be attached. They couldn't, if somebody had a judgment against you, they couldn't attach your property. It was yours forever. We had land patents in this country before we became a nation. That's what we were supposed to have, is our own little plots of land that could not be attached, that couldn't be taken from us. We have to become landed individuals again. We have to restore those traditions. The Kents received a land grant from the King of England. I believe it was King George. I think it was the first King George. 1649. The land was on the Great Bay of New Hampshire. The Kent family sold a point of land to the Adams family. That became known as Adams Point. Ansel Adams. I think you've heard of his name. Folks, I want my land back. I want my heirs to be able to live on that land. If I succeed in helping you to restore the Republic, then that would be my fee, and I would appreciate that. I certainly am not going to have the wealth to buy it back. I want it back. I don't want to be paying taxes to the locals anymore. They're not giving anything anyway. They're just taking the taxes on the old estate. The taxes on all of that property added up must be $250,000 a year or something crazy like that. The taxes on the last 19 acres alone were $48,000 a year, and they didn't even give. There was no postal service. There was no mail delivery. There were roads, but the roads weren't maintained. There was no plowing of the roads. I'd like to have it back and put a chain across that and plow my own roads. I've gone past a lot of things on this. In the Bible, it says love, truth, and justice. That's a commandment as far as I can tell. And it's not one of the 10 commandments, but yet it is a command. You'll find it. I picked that up while studying the NIV Study Bible in particular. Now, if you think about it, love, truth, justice, and the American way. Yeah. You all used to know the name of Kent in this country very well. These days I have to repeat it, and I have to spell it. Can you imagine that? I mean, there's Kent ammunition, there was Kent cigarettes, there was Clark Kent, there was the show Superman. Oh, heck. Back when that thing was going, everybody knew my name. They knew how to spell it. Now I have to repeat it. And even spell it? Oh, come on, folks. The Kent name is going to be very famous someday. Why? Well, I think that we're going to be discovering the real author of the Shakespearean plays. I don't think he was a very nice guy, though, folks. I have to concede that. I have to admit that. And I don't think that was from the Kent side of the family. I think that was from the Queen, her side of the family. I want you to buy the Bible. I want you to start reading it. Your prayer should be, Yahweh, help open this book up to me so that I will understand it. Get that understanding. Get that knowledge. My people perish for lack of knowledge. So get that knowledge. Get that foundation. You can read the Shakespearean plays if you want as well. There's archetypes in there. There's things embedded in those that are very helpful. I entitled 2 articles in my blog, A Pox Upon Your House, and then A Pox Upon Your House, Caesarea. The original line is A Pox Upon Both Your Houses. And that was mentioned 3 times during Romeo and Juliet. And there was a pox on both of their houses. And so what is happening is that Caesarea has reared its ugly head once again, and it's time to discover who they are, folks. They are a sociopathic culture. They're a culture, a nation of sociopaths. They are running the world today. They've been running it long enough, folks, and the future is in the Bible as well. Read the shortest book in the Bible, well, in the Old Testament, and that would be the book of Obadiah. It's got 1 chapter to it. I think it's 20 or 22 verses. Read that chapter. It will tell you your fate. It will tell you the 2 sides, the 2 players. And again, that goes back to the war that started in the Garden of Eden when Eve was seduced by the serpent, gave birth to Cain, and then Adam and Eve had their own child, and that was Abel. And of course, Cain murdered Abel. We've got good witness to that. It's in the Bible. And then later on, Seth replaced Abel. And so these are the 2 warring factions, the descendants from these 2 lines, from Seth and from Cain. And the Khazarians are descendants of Cain. We're going to get into that. It's all in the Bible, folks. Read your Bibles. Spend a lot of time in Genesis. It's going to be an important book. We're going to be dwelling on the original sin. I broke the code, folks. I think I really have. I think I have an understanding. You can disagree with me all you want. It's okay. There's no problem with it. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, some of my brothers say the flood was worldwide. Some say it was local. I think someday we'll know which it was. I think that that Noah's flood was local. I think there were worldwide floods. I think there might be 2 worldwide floods in the Bible. We've got the one right at the beginning of Genesis. We have another one that's mentioned in the prophets. Folks, the future is in the Bible too. What's coming, what's happening is the Bible. And the problem is the bad guys know it better than we do, and they're using it against us. They think they're doing God's work when they feed our own children to us. Yeah, that's one of the things in there. They siege cities, and they ended up eating their own children. There's even stories about how they use their children for mortar when building buildings when they didn't have any mortar in Egypt to use. Now, I don't know if those are tall tales or if they're true. I got some older brothers that hopefully can point that out to me, but it's important we agree upon main things. And the main things are that Eve was seduced. She made a major mistake. Adam loved his wife so much he couldn't live without her. He decided to stay with her. He probably had the opportunity to get a new wife. Probably had a talk with his father Yahweh, and he told Yahweh that he didn't want to live without her. And he made that choice, so he became mortal just like she became, and he perished. And I think that Yahweh told his son Adam was his son. Read Luke chapter 3 to the last verse. You will see Adam, the son of God. Read the Bible, and you'll see that Adam was the son of God. He was immortal, ran the earth just fine until the fall. I believe that Creator Father Yahweh said, okay, son, if you want to stay with Eve, so be it. That's fine. I'll make a way for you back. And I do believe that that's why the Messiah came, was to correct the original sin, to make things right regarding the original sin. And unfortunately, we've had a lot of suffering since then. And of course, Ussher, I think he was the Bishop Ussher, he wrote a book about the Bible and about time, and he traced the beginning of creation back about 6,000 years ago. Don't remember the exact year, but I have another brother who told me that Ussher did not get the date of creation. He actually really got the date of the fall, the date when the problem occurred. Now, I don't know if that would have been with Cain's birth, or that would have been with the union, with the conception. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering when conception occurs, it occurs at that spark of light, that energy that's given off when the sperm and the ovum unite. There's a big flash of light. The bigger the flash of light, the bigger the soul entering it, and your genius is usually lit off a whole bunch of light. And that's the beginning of life, when that soul enters that body right then. The heart's not even beating then, folks. But that's my definition of the moment of the beginning of life. It's conception. Perhaps we could say it's conception in the mind, that somebody decided to have a child and that was in the mind at the time. But what we can say is that when the sperm and the ovum unite and they combine, that at that exact moment in time, there's a big flash of light, a big flash of energy. And that's when the soul is mated with the body. That's 6 weeks before the heart beats, I believe. And Texas gives you 6 weeks to have an abortion. I think it's still murder before the heart is beating. Sorry, ladies, but you were given a lot of extra stuff for the purposes of being a mother. Is it natural for a mother to kill her babies? I don't think so. So that's my stance on that, folks. As you go through the day, get your Bibles, read the Bible, read the Genesis in particular, because we're going to be studying in that. If you need some uplifting, read the Psalms. Read those out loud. Those will give you uplifting, that's for sure. Ladies, Proverbs. Everybody should read Proverbs. If you're feeling kind of down and out, go read my favorite book of the Bible, the book of John. It starts off with what I call an understanding of the physics of the universe, and it's very beautiful. It's very wonderful. So read the book of Apostle John. He was the last of the apostles alive, and he actually wrote the book of Revelations. He basically transcribed what Yahshua dictated to him on the island of Patmos. John was considered the beloved apostle. He always supped right next to Jesus. I don't know whose head on whose chest. I know that they were right next to each other. They didn't have chairs back then. They leaned towards the table and rested on one of their arms. So they were reclining at the table. So this was the one that Jesus loved. Well, folks, go about your day. Be grateful for the peace that we have today. Be grateful for every blessing you have. As I said, be grateful for your food and for your drink. Be grateful for the relative peace you've had. Be grateful for having a good night's sleep. Be grateful for having clean clothes, good, safe, fairly safe running water. I believe that we are in the Bible as the land of bitter waters, in Isaiah and in the prophets. The Bible is written at so many levels that you're never going to exhaust your reading of it or your understanding of it. You have a great day, folks. This is the longest I think I've ever gone. Bye-bye. And in case you're wondering, sometimes my smile is inverted you know, and that's a typical Alaskan trait, probably from being around the natives and working with the natives. They're wonderful people. The biggest brains on planet Earth, among humanoids anyway, is the Eskimo brain, about 2.2 pounds, or it's heavier than the rest of the brains. Of course, it's the folds in the brains that are more associated with intelligence. However, the natives have a presence, a pragmatism that they teach us. Um, if you get to know them and you talk with them, you will find they don't say much, but what they say actually has more depth and more wisdom than what we say. They don't waste their words. They taught me quite a bit. I really appreciate my time in the bush. Um, it's kind of rough out there, folks. I'd like to go back and visit out there again. Don't think I want to spend a lot of time out there, months out there, a year out there, whatever, like I did before. It's kind of hard on the head. Um, but the natives are noted for having an inverted smile. And I caught myself smiling like that at the end of one of my videos, and I had to chuckle and laugh because, I know where I got that from. We generally smile upright, but um, enjoy yourselves, folks. Enjoy the relative peace we have today. Um, let's stay out of other people's business. Let's mind your own business. Um, let's not get suckered into this war that they're trying to stage up and trying to expand. If we let them expand this war, then they definitely will destroy us. And if we let this jackass in office, if we let them stay there, then we're in trouble because he makes the wrong decisions on everything, folks. I mean, we shouldn't be putting any armaments into that situation. It's just going to get more Ukrainians killed. Why do we? Oh, and by the way, it's people on our shores that are ordering Zelensky what to do. And they're ordering him to keep his army out there exposed in those areas, even after Putin begged them to withdraw them. Putin doesn't want to kill those boys. He doesn't want their blood on his hands. He wants those boys safe so they can defend the country properly. But that president of that country actually had the audacity to order them to stay there regardless of the loss of life, and they're totally surrounded. That's not good, folks. It's certainly not in the Ukrainians' best interest. And the Ukraine is an important country. I want to see it stay independent. I think that's what everybody wants to see. But the problem is that our criminal class, our politicians have been meddling over there. And it's so corrupt. And we've got biological research facilities there. Yeah, research facilities, my butt. We know what they're making. And so they're in there trying to take care of that stuff. And we need to take care of that stuff. All of these biological labs, including the one in Wuhan, China, the ones in the States, we're not told what goes on there. We don't have the oversight. We don't have control over that stuff. I mean, I think it should be up to you and I. Do we want to make biological weapons, terroristic kinds of stuff? Do we want to do that stuff? Do we want to take those risks? I don't think so. I don't want to do it. I'd vote against it. So there's no democracy, folks. We're ruled over. And just like the Bible says, we're ruled over by those who hate us. We're ruled over by the tail. We're ruled over by the criminal class of our country. We're ruled over by a bunch of sociopaths. They act like they're proper people, but I mean, look at them. Look at their behavior. Look at what they do. They got some nasty habits. I don't see them being prosecuted for it. Dwell on your blessings today, folks. Read your Bibles. Talk to you soon.